All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for our town hall on where does our food come from. I'm Kim De Silva, the CEO here at Community Food Share. And when we have individuals who come to CFS and or if we're out doing talks, the number one question we always get is, where does your food come from? Community Food Share, we distribute over 11 million pounds of food a year. About 70% of that goes to our 43 now partner agencies across Boulder and Broomfield County. And the remaining 30% goes to our direct service programs, such as our on-site pantry, our mobile pantries, and our senior programs. So in procuring and distributing 11 million pounds of food a year takes a lot of coordination and work. So I am so thrilled today that we have two of our essential team members online to help walk us through where our food comes from. We have Adam Deal. He is our Director of Operations. Give a wave, Adam. Adam has been with the organization for, I believe this is his 7th year at Community Food Share. And joining him, we have Dana Deal, who is our Senior Food Resource and Compliance Manager. Dana has been here, I believe this is her 5th year at Community Food Share. And fun fact, those two are indeed married, thus the matching last names. It's a food bank romance, which we love to talk about every around Valentine's Day. So great team. And just a little side note on Dana really quick as well, is she also is our compliance manager. What people might not know is that Community Food Share, we take food safety of the highest regard here. And we are audited by AIB, which is the highest level of food safety auditing you can get in our country. And we have an AIB audit actually coming up in just a week or so. So everybody's scrambling to do some last minute activities to make sure we're in tip-top shape for that. But so not only is Dana going out and procuring food for our organization, but also making sure it's being sent out and distributed in the best manner possible. So once again, thank you everyone for joining, learning more, and I'm going to turn it over to Adam and Dana.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is fun because this is kind of my bread and butter. Adam knows that. This is what gets me kind of excited for every day. Also makes every day very unpredictable, which Adam doesn't like, but I do. Keeps me on my toes. So I'm sure all you guys are curious to know where our food comes from. Most food banks kind of follow the same guides as we do. So you kind of get a good all-around idea of where most food banks get their food, including us. So let's start. Here we go with the agenda. So as most of you know, we are partners with Feeding America, which is a great, we're very lucky to be a part of. So that's what we'll first discuss. We also have a lot of great local partners here, food and, like health powders and vitamins, all that good stuff. Food drives are pretty big with Community Food Share. Our TFAP USDA program we'll talk about, and then we'll talk about some of our challenges here at procuring food, and then we'll end with a positive note of going forward. So being a Feeding America partner has its perks. We have access to thousands of farms throughout the country that a lot of farmers need to get rid of their produce that either hasn't sold or would otherwise be tilled under. So we have a a system called Meal Connect here, which is used in a couple different ways. I'm sure some of you've heard of it. But a lot of the farmers, the national farmers, will put their loads of produce on Meal Connect for us to kind of grab up. It does cost, but very little, anywhere from as low as 8 cents a pound to all the way up to sometimes 32 cents a pound, but which is all around much cheaper than the stuff you find at the store. So we go in at times with, we call it the cluster, the Colorado cluster. We go in with 4 of the 5 food banks in Colorado, which includes Weld County, Larimer County Food Bank, and Karen Share Food Bank down in the Springs. And we all take a share of a load. So if it's a whole load of cabbage, we each take 1/4 of it. Sometimes we can take thirds or so on. So it's a pretty cool program. We thank Feeding America for that, because a lot of the farmers know Feeding America, and they trust we know what to do with their food. So that's how we get most of our produce. Most of it is not so much local. It's usually apples, Washington. We get a lot of sweet potatoes from Georgia, North Carolina, stuff like that. Also, this is my fun time of the day. Twice a day, Feeding America has a program called the Choice Program, and it's an online bidding system with points that you have to kind of earn. Either when we earn ours mostly by giving our empty banana boxes away to other food banks. So we get points, and then national donors such as General Mills, Post Cereal, Procter & Gamble, Conagra, Kraft, Niagara, they all post loads on the Choice system of bottled water, cereal. I'm trying to think something we got recently. We got the Eggo waffles. They all kind of post these things that either are near expiration or that they couldn't sell because it didn't, the shape wasn't perfect. So they put those online for free, and then you bid on them with points, the points that we have. They all start in the negative, so you hope to get negative because then you get points. But they usually not these days, not for a couple of years. Nothing usually goes for the negative, but and then all we have to pay for is freight to get it here, which is really minuscule compared to how much that donation is worth. So and they do that twice a day, and I am on it every day on the hour because we're competing with the 200 and so other food banks in the country for these loads. So it's very competitive, but it's a lot of fun as well. But that's where you see a lot of our random donations come from, these bigger food companies. So that is Feeding America partnership that we have. The locals, which is my favorite because I insist on going to pick up these donations. Adam doesn't like that, but I insist on going because I love to catch up with these donors. A lot of them, I know their families and I know their history, and it's always just fun to catch up with them. One of our biggest donors is, as you might know, Danone, which is based out in Broomfield. They provide us our weekly milk, as most of you know of. And they also supply us with like yogurt, yogurts or kefir, or sometimes other non-dairy milks that are in other plants around the country. They have a plant in Utah, Dallas. So we have to pay for freight for those. But again, it's very, very little to what the load is worth. So if you see yogurt, that's where it usually comes from for us. And we get those about every month, hopefully every month. Also right in the CTC, we have Hope Foods, which is they've got great hummus and spread. Boulder Organic Foods, which is now the Honest Company and Boulder Organic Foods. They've been with us for a very long time. They're actually in our old building, in our old food bank in Gun Barrel. So we go there quite often. One of our new donors is Ned, which is a Boulder-based company with this like has supplements, natural supplements that are great to like a magnesium. They specialize in magnesium supplements. Um, Also during the produce season, we pick up from two wonderful farms, Aspen Moon Farm and Kilt Farm. Both of those, Aspen Moon gives us their leftover CSA shares, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, the ones that people don't pick up, and then just extra produce that they harvested that they didn't sell. Same thing with Kilt Farm. We've had these partnerships with them for ever since I've been there. So, but we also are a member of Fresh Food Connect, which encourages backyard growers to donate excess produce. Or we also have a program called Grow a Row, where we ask either farmers or background or backyard farmers to grow extra for the food bank, which we get quite a bit from during the produce season, which it's a great way to involve the community. And a lot more people have more interest in the Grow a Row program lately, just because they want to do more good. And that's, if they are good at farming or growing, it's an easy way to do so. We have our own farm, actually, called Community Roots. It's right off of J Road and 75th. And Katie, our farming manager, is in charge of that. Last year, I think we got over 14,000 pounds of organic produce. It's the most beautiful produce you've ever seen. Mostly that produce goes out through our shop floor or our agency shop floor or our feeding families floor. Just how she harvests, that's the best way for it to go. So that's kind of our local heroes. Another one of our local heroes are all our local grocery stores. We have over 47 grocery stores in Boulder and Broomfield County. 7 of our great partner agencies help us with these pickups. Those partner agencies include Sister Carmen, North Denver Cares, Our Center, EFA, Louisville Community Food Bank. I think I'm not missing. Longmont Food Rescue helps us out, and we're hoping to grow that program in the future. But most of our retail donations, we get bread, produce, meat is a big one, dairy, prepared food, non-perishables, and non-food. Our biggest local grocery donor last year, and I'm pretty sure the year before, was Trader Joe's. So it's a great partnership that we have with them. They're great, just a great company to work with overall, but we thank our grocery stores immensely for all the great food they give us. Food drives. So that's another thing I'm pretty much in charge of at Community Food Share is our food drives. We have 2 annual big food drives throughout the year. We have one that's it's called Hunger Hurts, and then we have Let's Bag Hunger. We've kind of combined those 2 with the 9 Cares, Colorado Shares food banks. So we'll be having one in June of this year up at the Longmont King Supers there. But we rely heavily on this stuff because it's kind of like a mishmash of all these canned goods that kind of takes us through winter. Our big food drive season, of course, is the holidays. A lot of schools, businesses, and individuals hold food drives for us. We have one neighborhood in Broomfield that collects everything in like this really cool, I think they paid for it. They created kind of this, I don't want to say dumpster because that doesn't sound good, but it's a kind of a roll-off container where they collect canned goods and they fill it up, it's a lot of food. Also, St. Vrain School District holds a big one for us every year. Again, they provide the basics: peanut butter, jelly, tuna, soups, stuff that's real hearty for the winter. So we really rely heavily on food drives. It's a great way to introduce ourselves to the community. Those 2 food drives we do at the King Super stores is exciting for us because we do get out in the community and meet everybody and kind of show our faces and what we do every day. So now I'm going to hand it over to Adam to talk about purchasing and our grants.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to Kim for that great introduction, and thank you to my wife for being you. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be here today to learn about this fun and interesting topic. So yeah, as Dana said, I'm going to speak a little bit on purchasing grants to start. So here at Community Food Share, and like any other food bank, we do have a purchasing budget, kind of that fluctuates year to year, just on a lot of different factors to do with funding, the need, and such like that. We also receive a lot of food through grants. We use a lot of purchasing and grants to kind of fill in the gaps where we see the food we need. So this is going to be a lot of this money, and grant money is going to be spent on kind of the harder to get items like peanut butter, canned soup, canned tuna or canned chicken, even sometimes frozen meat. Things like that just are harder to get donated, and especially donated on a bigger scale. One thing to know about grants is grants they can come in two different ways. They can be restricted or unrestricted. So grants can, if you receive a grant that you apply for, it may have a lot of, kind of specifics that you need to follow, and it may only be allowed to be used to purchase food, like a certain type of food, a food from a certain area, lots of different things that, it could be involved with. And then unrestricted grants are kind of, as it sounds, it's just money where you can kind of spend where is needed and on what products you need. Grants can also come from lots of different sources. I think majority of our grants come kind of on the local, county, and state level. But we also receive, grants through Feeding America, and sometimes federal grants. Kind of going in the next topic in a minute. We don't have to go to the next slide yet, Trevor, but also there can even be grants within TFAP. So yeah, grants. Kind of think that some really good examples. I know the grants are kind of something that's really up Dana's wheelhouse. But in the past couple years, there's been some really particular grants. One being the LFPA grant, which Dana would have to tell you what it stands for.
Yeah, that's the Local Food Purchase Assistive Cooperative Agreement Program.
Yeah, and this has been a great grant, but it is kind of a restricted grant too, and you have to find food through some very specific avenues. But it's been a great challenge for Dana. I think she's enjoyed, having to find the food through this and kind of work with it. Yeah, so every year kind of going in and we evaluate kind of the year before, we evaluate the need into the upcoming year. We take a lot of kind of our participant survey feedback and our partner agency survey feedback, and we kind of create a really nice purchasing plan. The purchasing plan can always kind of fluctuate throughout the year, because the need at the beginning of the year most of the time is not the same at the end of the year, as I'm sure a lot of people know. But yeah, I think kind of we start basically with a nice purchasing plan, and then throughout the year, the grants can kind of help fill in those gaps and I'll say in my time here, it always feels like when we're in a time of need or we're kind of figuring out, how to get some more food in here for the rest of the year, there always seems to be some kind of grant that pops up and, saves the day and really helps us kind of meet that need. Um, so yeah, and one other thing to know about grants that, just a really big shout out to our Philmar team is just the art form that is grant writing. Um, grants that we apply for, that these grant writers just have really mastered this technique of, kind of advocating for our food bank and trying to apply for these grants. So yeah, that's kind of grants and purchasing. And
Are
our
you,
next topic,
Adam, sorry, are you okay if I jump in on a note on that real quick?
Yeah.
So just to give the audience here kind of an idea of how much we spend on food purchase each year. Prior to the pandemic, we were spending, our food purchase and acquisition budget was in the $700,000 range. And this year will be over $2 million of food purchased. And that food purchase is really meant to supplement what's not being donated. So we have so many great donors who give, through stores and all of the great avenues that Dana talked about, but there's still this big lack of things that our partner agencies and the individuals who are coming to access the food need that don't get donated. So that is why we work so hard to bring in money to help supplement those costs. And many of those grants are actually what are called reimbursement grants. So we can go ahead and purchase those loads of food, and then we submit paperwork usually to the state of Colorado, because a lot of those grants come through the state of Colorado or the city and county of Boulder. And then they come back and they reimburse us once we have purchased the food and it's in-house. So just wanted to give that quick overview. I'm so sorry for interrupting, Adam, and please continue.
No, you're fine. Yes, so next is USDA or TFAT food, which is definitely something I more specialize in. This is kind of my a little bit more of my wheelhouse here within operations. So TFAP stands for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and it is basically kind of the government program for food banks. It's kind of managed at a state level by each state, but then also the USDA kind of comes into play as well. TFAP food is a really good way to kind of supplement a lot of partner agencies and our own food. TFAP has a different kind of income eligibility. And then to be a partner agency or a recipient agency of TFAP food, there's a different kind of application process and some requirements behind that. So right now we do have several of our partner agencies that are TFAP recipient agencies that receive TFAP food from us. Our current structure is we actually have our TFAP contract with the state managed by Weld Food Bank. And they also manage Food Bank of Larimer County's TFAP as well. That's kind of just because the other two food banks, Food Bank of the Rockies and Karen Chair, are on a little bit different scale. So us kind of three that are a little bit more similar in size kind of handle that program together in kind of northern Colorado. Emergency food through the TFAP program is going to look like kind of a lot of the same products that we may purchase or receive through grants, but it's always going to be purchased through a USDA approved kind of vendor. We've been moving to a lot of different kinds of TFAP food. It's not kind of what you've typically seen before and being just government kind of canned meat or government cheese or something like that. It's going to be lots of different canned proteins and canned vegetables. They've even partnered kind of since the pandemic with a lot of farmers, and now have TFAT produce, fresh produce that comes in. And we even receive a lot of meat products through TFAP as well. I think if there's anything else to kind of speak on with that. Yeah, here in the next slide, here are some of the income eligibilities, if anyone is kind of curious on these. Internally here at Community Food Share on our pantry floor, we have a kind of a separate section that houses our TFAP food. Just so shoppers can kind of know the designated area for TFAP food versus non-TFAP food. All right, and then we're kind of moving on to some of the graphs now that anybody can feel free to jump into. That a lot of these are just going to kind of show some of the numbers of the different levels of our incoming food and the sources where they come from. So we on average right now are distributing around 10 to 12 million pounds of food. But these numbers will kind of show in percentages where the food is coming from.
Yeah, before the pandemic, we were our purchased food was about at 8%, and now we're up at about 11%. So 11% of our food is purchased, and the rest is donated, if that gives you any idea. But as you can see, the manufacturers and processors are our biggest donor there, dairy being the milk that we get every week. And again, a lot of those Choice Feeding America loads go under that. As y'all can see, the retail and wholesale, those are our grocery stores. And then the produce and the donated cluster, that would be also produce. We've currently started working with another food bank that's kind of branched out to a different avenue called Fresh Connect Central. And it's through the Gleaners Food Bank in Indianapolis, Indiana. And they have a way to, they buy produce, and it's kind of like the Feeding America way, but it's just through just a different avenue. And so we currently have been buying full truckloads of mixed produce. We got one in today. Adam can tell you more about it, but I think there was apples. It's just a really good way to, instead of buying a full truckload of one thing, you can buy a full truckload of several different things. I mean, I think we today received like 7 different produce items, which is gives us a lot of variety, a little bit more than the cluster does. And it's again at a very small rate, anywhere from again about 8 cents all the way up to 32 cents a pound. So it's a great way to supplement when the cluster isn't running at the moment, which it isn't. So yeah, so that's where that comes in. Some of the challenges we face, of course, being a nonprofit, we all have challenges. One of the big ones that we face is there's a lot of donor staff turnover, which I'm sure you're familiar with. If you work with food donors or grocery stores, they, they're here one day, gone the next. And after you've worked so hard in educating them about how donations work and who we are and why we do this and why they should do this, you kind of have to start all over. And it's a full-time job just to keep up with the turnover. But it's a fun way to re-educate. That is the fun part, but it is also a challenge when those people do leave. And you hope that they would leave a note or some sort of directions, but most of the time they don't. So it's always a bit of a challenge to get back in the door with them. Another one is there's a lot of local food rescue organizations that aren't partners with Feeding America, so they kind of run their own show, and they have a great mission as well as we do. So, but we have found ourselves lately, having to kind of compete for food donations with these guys, and which is something I never want to do or like doing. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, having to try to work through those and try to get them to kind of either um, come to be a partner agency of ours, or just a way to work better together, because we are in fact doing the same thing and wanting to see the same outcome. So those are two of mine, and then Adam can talk about the other guys.
Yeah, so just kind of continuing on some challenges. This is one that's kind of really been prevalent in the last 6 months to a year. So kind of during the pandemic, you know, a blessing that came out of it was just and really increased donations and funds, and we're really able to provide a great deal of food and as well a great deal of variety and choice. But kind of coming out of that right now, we're kind of definitely back to the pre-pandemic times, and it's a little bit harder to kind of find that consistent variety. Um, and then being a food bank and also purchasing food, there's not as many avenues to kind of go and find different types of food. The one thing we kind of struggle with a lot is quality versus quantity. A peanut butter, we may have to buy a peanut butter that it's definitely a brand that nobody has heard of, but we're able to get it at a reasonable price and a big quantity that we're able to share it um, really equitably throughout our service area. But yeah, definitely food choice and variety has been something that we've struggled with recently. That kind of in a little bit we'll speak on some kind of solutions we're looking into with those things. Um, Definitely continuing education is another one. That's definitely something that I have kind of seen as I've kind of started that community food chair and entered into the food banking world. That just kind of the way that donors envision food rescue organizations and food banks, just kind of continuing to kind of change that image and educate donors about food donations, but while also maintaining that uh, just the simple fact that we are extremely grateful for any donation. But we want to make sure that the food that is being donated is fit for human consumption, that it is food safe, and we just want to make sure that we are not seen or do not become a dumping ground for donations. So, and then lastly, one of our challenges is just our purchasing budget. And I kind of spoke on that a little bit earlier. We can kind of start with a plan at the beginning of the year. But as is, of course, in food banks and just the nonprofit world, a lot of times your plans can kind of go out the door really soon. So it's a lot of kind of pivoting and brainstorming and just working with your team to kind of find what's the next step. So purchasing budgets are always changing, and we're always looking for ways to kind of stretch that and meet the need the best that we can. And that's kind of where those grants come in, and we definitely rely heavily on trying to look for some of these really great grants to kind of fit in, where the puzzle piece is missing to really try to get these most needed foods, these popular items and culturally specific items, and kind of even healthier choices. I know there's been a lot of push for different dietary restricted items, and we're kind of in the search for different grants to have to or to be able to purchase specific items like that as well. So, all right. So the path forward, this section, we were me and Dana, and anyone else, Kim or Kevin, if anyone wants to speak to on any of this, just kind of some of the ideas, solutions, thoughts that we have had to kind of move forward with some of these challenges. I think Dana spoke on Fresh Connect Central, but we are always kind of brainstorming together to think of just different things outside of the box of how we can bring a more diverse type of food, different amounts of food. As I kind of spoke on earlier, it can be a little bit difficult for Dana when she is trying to procure food because they're, especially in food purchasing, there are not always a ton of different outlets and avenues, but, that world is, ever expanding. One of the trends that I really see kind of in food banking, which I think has just been great and wonderful, is just food banks sharing food. Every food bank kind of has a strength and a weakness where, in terms of the food that they might get. Some examples might be we often, when we kind of find ourselves low on a snack item or a chip item, we have a food bank that is part of Feeding America as well, that is located in Akron, Ohio, and they happen to be really close to a Frito-Lay plant. And they get, Frito-Lay chip donations like crazy, and they're always willing to share one with us, and we'll pay for freight. It's kind of similar to doing like the Feeding America choice system, but we don't even have to bid or use any points. And then sometimes even when we reach out and we might take a load of chips, we may even share something that we have an excess of here at Community Food Share. Something that maybe, is short dated, and we're worried that we may not be able to get it throughout our community before, it's too far past expiration. Another thing being a lot of food banks in different regions of the country will form kind of groups. I think Nina spoke on it a little bit, but I know we are also part of a little mini regional group called Dare to Share, which is throughout the country, but we're the Dare to Share Southwest region. And again, it's just another kind of group of food banks that just communicate regularly and talk about different donations that they may have. We believe got a great coffee donation recently through this kind of network, which will be coming available here. We just received it earlier this week. But yeah, that's a couple of my thoughts on different solutions and things we've been kind of brainstorming on. Dana, do you want to elaborate on anything?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to jump into on Feeding America's end as a national organization. What they're looking for is they're talking about things like regional mixing centers. Mm-hmm. So bringing in product to these regional mixing centers that then can be mixed by variety and sent back out. Because one of the biggest things that we hear is about variety. And one of the hardest things about variety is the fact that, when you're looking at products to bring in, especially through our purchase program, you want to balance the items that individuals need, thrive, and desire with the, cost of those items to bring them in and get them back out. So, as much as we wish we had 10 different vegetables every day for people to choose from, sometimes we may only have 2. So it's really too about education of that balance of trying to figure out when we can bring in different items that are really cost effective and desired, and when do we have to make sure that we just have enough food for our partner agencies and our individuals, especially in the environment we're seeing right now, which is our partner agencies, our internal pantries and external pantries are just seeing such an increase in need of people needing food assistance. So it's a really fine balance that Dana and Adam do. So kudos to you all for walking that fine balance.
Yeah, my whole thing is, and again, Adam kind of spoke on it, but for the future, I just think collaboration. I think there is, it's already being done, but I think it could be done better. Because really, we really can't do this alone. I believe me, I've tried. It's it's aged me about 10 years, but I think if we can all just be on the same page and be willing to help each other and share what we can, I think we can conquer a lot of great things, whether it's donors or the grocery stores. So I just think we could do better by more collaboration with our partner agents and even the food rescue organizations that are out there, because I think there is enough food to go around. We just need to find a way to get it and then to get it out to everyone. So I look forward to working, being more collaborative with our partner agencies, with our food and their food preferences, and hoping for some more grants in the future. Next year, you never, the LFPA is, I'm sure some of you have heard of it, was a great grant over many years. And I'm pretty sure that's going away. So I look forward to another interesting grant coming our way. And they just hope for the best and, keep our heads down and keep going, because that's what we have to do.
Well, thank you so much for, both you and Dana and Adam, for helping explain kind of the logistics of getting food in and out. But I'd love to open it up to the floor for any questions you may have. You can put them in the chat. You can just go off mute. Is there anything that you'd like us to dig into a little deeper?
Well, I think that the corporate offices, stores, you mentioned the Trader Joe is a very big contributor to food share. I've been with food share over in Louisville now for 2 years in May, and also been for almost 3 years at Golden West, where I'm resident. And it's very interesting. Before I got involved with the food bank, actually over in Louisville, I always purchased my day-old bread at King Soopers. And I can see in the meantime how that has diminished, because the quantity is not even there in King Soopers anymore. I think they are keeping them themselves and resell the old food. So I think your idea to get renegotiation going with the big companies would be a really good idea, to bring them more spending more food, donating more food. And with Adams for not dumping we're not a dumping ground. I really appreciate that statement, because sometimes what does come in, and I'm in the oldest department at the warehouse, elder share, and some of those items, yes, you wouldn't even want to touch it, but then we go through it, because food is so important, especially for children, to get the right nourishment to grow up and be learning learning things. It's very important to have the food for the resource for the children. And I know the rest goes to the piggies. They're very happy. But go to renegotiate with the big concerns, I think there would be definitely a good goal to go for. Thank
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. And both on a national level, Feeding America works to negotiate some of these larger chains that are across the country, and then help us kind of gauge how we can have those conversations locally. And a lot of times it comes down to education. People just don't know what they don't know. So being able to get in front of those entities and really talk about the importance. And we talked about, grants a whole bunch, and the majority of those grants come from government entities. The government understands that there is a food need throughout our country and trying to figure out how to effectively get that food to neighbors. And so we have on a national level as well, individuals who work in DC from Feeding America who are really advocating for more food for programs, for government programs to, during the pandemic, we had a great program called Farmers to Food Banks. And we got boxes and boxes of mixed, it would be produce, milk, dairy, all came in boxes that came straight from farmers, and things that could not go to restaurants anymore because many of the restaurants were closed. And that was huge for, there's 200 food banks across the country, and it was a program that hit every single county of every single state throughout our country. And then just, kind of shifting a little bit, when we don't have those big government reimbursement grants, we do still purchase food, and we do that by individual donations. Individuals make up over 50% of the funding that comes through community food share. So even though it may come in unrestricted, if our annual operating says we need to spend $1 million+ on food purchase, we do look to the generosity of the individuals who are giving 50, 100, 1,000 to us to help procure that food when those grants aren't available. So it is, it is definitely, I love to say at Community Food Share, it's definitely a community, because it takes all entities, from the individual who lives down the street to the national organization that helps feed food into the system. So there is a question here, though, about, I'm wanting to know about the vetting process for CFS clients, including for TFAP. Is it based totally on what they put on their intake form? Maybe this is a question for another day or different staff member. No, I'm happy to address that, Nancy. When individuals come to CFS for food assistance, they can enroll as a self declaration of need. So what that really means is if you come in and you say you need food assistance, CFS will assist you with that food. Now, when it comes to TFAP, which is the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or CSFP, which is Commodity Supplemental Food Program that goes to individuals, since it is a government program, they do ask for you to self-declare that you make less than a certain amount of funds each year to access that food. I always say, if you have waited in line for food assistance of any way, shape, or form, this is individuals who need the food. Waiting 2 hours to get at times to get a cart of food is very, it's a long time to wait for some food assistance for you and your family. Also, what we see is that we live in Boulder County, and Boulder County is one of the highest cost of living areas throughout our state. And, for individuals to meet those government guidelines of the food, I just actually did a talk on Monday where when we take a look at what the poverty level for SNAP assistance is, for food insecurity in Boulder County, you would have to make 200% of the federal poverty level, and that would be about 60,000 gross, which is 48,000 net, to have access for food stamps here in our country. in our county, and then to actually have a self-sufficiency level of being able to support yourself and your family without any additional assistance, you would need to make over $100,000. So many of the individuals who come through our pantries are working individuals who make between $50,000 a year and $100,000 a year to feed their families. Sorry, and there's another comment from Nancy. I have a question and a comment.
Hi, number one, thank you. Is there a way we can access this slide deck? And part of my comment and reason to ask the question is it's great information. I facilitate a large food pantry in Longmont, the Round Pantry.
Yeah.
And I echo everything that Kim is saying in terms of the numbers and the increased need on people's faces. That's my other answer too. Are people really in need? When you walk up to the car and you see the faces, they are in need. But on the other side of it, the number of people who want to support, this would be great information to be able to share with our own donors and be able to help direct them to various ways that they can support the general community food share budget. So final comment is you all are awesome. And the amount of planning and forecasting and figuring and standing on your heads and believing that we can all do this together is really inspirational and very much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Nancy. And we surely couldn't do it without people like you. You have been an advocate and a warrior for food for so many years. And we're so thrilled that we get to work with you day in and day out.
And you may have said warrior. I am a warrior, but yeah, I am a warrior.
Warrior and a warrior.
Yeah, seeing those cars lined up for blocks and blocks,
Yes.
thinking, oh my gosh, do we need to re-subdivide what wonderful food we got? Because there's more people in that line, but we're working on it together and we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, I had a question about the pop-up, or not pop-up, but these organizations that are distributing food, like kind of on the front lines, but aren't associated with the community food share. And you were saying that you wanted to figure out a way to kind of work with them. Is it something that can be done where they're approached, the person that say, wants to just start up a food bank for, let's say, the immigrants that have just come in down the street? Is it just a matter of telling them, hey, you need to sign up with us and we can help you launch your food bank? Or are they hindering your process by just popping up? I just found it was interesting to see, because, you see it all the time, that there are people on the streets that just collect food for the people that are living on the street. How does it affect the community food share organizations?
Yeah. So I will say a couple of things about this is that we are fully aware that everyone who gets into the food security space is there out of a passion and a desire to do better for the community. So, once again, there are different theories and beliefs on how that should be done. And so not everybody aligns with the way in which we do work or Feeding America does work, and that's okay. And so where we try to come in on the other side is really talking about, okay, we understand we may have some differences of opinions on when it comes to food procurement and distribution, but how can we still work together? Because our North Star is always those individuals coming through the door. So whether they're coming through our door or a door of somebody who may not be a partner of ours, as long as they're getting access to food, that is the most important thing to us. So to your point, I think there's a couple of different scenarios where you may have a partner agency. We saw a lot of this during the pandemic. People just popped up, started giving food, collecting food, and getting it out because the need overnight was so immense. And what we saw then after the pandemic slowed down is that people then just shut those programs down. And then you had these individuals trying to figure out where they should go next. So we do have agency staff members and collaboration team members who go out and say, okay, we all want to do this. How do we do it together? And a great example is, some of one of the feeding sites that we're working with in Boulder Housing Authority came together with partner agencies and Boulder Housing Authority and other organizations saying there is a need here. How can we work together to make sure people have what they need to support that specific building? So I think that when we talk about collaboration, it's more about all of us are in this doing great work. How can we work together, even if we're not, a part of the system of Community Food Share or Feeding America? For us, we feel that you look at there's also third-party organizations that like to rescue food and then sell them. So, a great example is dollar stores. Dollar stores are great, but when I got into food banking, all of that food went to food banks because there was not a way to make profit on it. And now there are. And so there are for-profit companies also looking for this food that supermarkets will no longer sell. So on a Feeding America national level, I sit on a committee where we're talking about how can we, work with some of these providers to really say, if we were to have that food, here's how much more we could do with it for our community. So I've been in this now almost 30 years, and it's so interesting because it's ever evolving. I always truly believe with all my heart, everybody in this work has the biggest heart, from volunteers to donors to organizations. And sometimes passion gets in the way of passion gets in the way of progress. So at times we all have to kind of check things at the door to see what's the best for the neighbor who needs the food that we are providing.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, it looks like there's no other questions. We will send the follow-up slide deck. Thank you, everyone, for spending your time to learn a little bit about where our food comes from. If you have any questions, if you want to come for a tour, just come on by. We'd love to see you. And we so appreciate each and every one of you for what you do for our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Very interesting and learned a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.